In this video, I'm going to be going through a history of tanks in Minecraft with the focus on technology that has developed over the months. You will notice I primarily use my own videos and builds from Tank Tussle, which is my server, as reference. While people do make tanks outside of Tank Tussle, they're sort of like those uncontacted native tribes in the Amazon, and are hundreds of years behind modern technology. Our timeline begins with a few tanks being posted in the Valkyrian Skies Discord server. First by M1 Abrams, which looks nothing like an M1 Abrams. The proportions are terrible, the turret is a square, and the shaping is questionable at best. It uses iron sheet metal for armor, which isn't very good, but at least it's sort of clean and metallic and looks okay compared to something like stone or cobblestone. It's powered by a steam engine, of all things, and uses a steel quickfire cannon, which is loaded by a mechanical arm. There are two important things to note here. First of all, there are no tracks. This tank, like all other tanks of the time, use what are basically just glorified wheels that are then covered up to resemble tracks. This makes them jumpy and bad at crossing terrain. Secondly, there's no way to get power from the hull power pack into the turret, so instead the turret has its own separate engine to supply power to the autoloader in the gun. Next is Skycon, whose tanks utilizes slabs and stairs to give it a bit more shaping than mine. Like my Abrams, it uses what are effectively just wheels to get around, and also a steel quickfire cannon. More importantly though, is that on his tank's post, Skycon says this. And that is the beginning of Tank Tussle. Some other people join in, most notably Submarine, with what I think is supposed to be a King Tiger, but at this point no tanks really resemble what they're supposed to look like. You will notice some nice new colored blocks on this tank, which come from the mod Steel Armor Blocks. This mod was quote-unquote discovered shortly after Skycon and I's tanks were made, and we still use this mod to this day. About 2 weeks later, after a lot of thumb twiddling, the fight is finally here. And everyone has made new tanks since first plans. Skycon shows up with an Elefant, which made great use of the newly introduced Frame Blocks mod to get some nice sloping, plus a pretty sweet camo using the steel armor blocks I mentioned earlier. I came up with a fictional tank, the STK2, a double-barreled heavy tank with 2 quickfire guns. And either he never posted it or I just can't find it, but you can see Sub's German
Löwe.
Luva tank here. And you may notice, all of these tanks are huge. Sub's tank is something like 11 blocks tall. Tanks these days aren't even that wide. This is due to the fact that we have no idea what we're doing, like seriously. Our transmissions and everything inside the tanks are super big and not compact or optimized at all. Plus it's easier to get more detail with the larger build, so that's what we did. In any case, I ended up winning this battle thanks to my dual quickfire guns, which were considered blatantly overpowered at the time. You'll see what overpowered really means in terms of armament a little bit later, but for now and throughout the video, I'm going to be keeping track of the top autoloader design at any given time, just so you can get an idea of what the firepower is like. On the topic of firepower, none of these tanks utilize a full autoloader yet. They were just quickfire loaders, which are considerably less powerful, but also much less complicated. None of us know how to make reliable and remotely fast full autoloaders, let alone fit them into already barely working tanks. This changes in week 2 of Tank Tussle, where I pack a 7-charge autoloader into my tank, the STP7. This loader is surprisingly more compact than I remember it being. But the load time is abysmal at a crawling 8.6 seconds per shot out of a single barrel, which makes for just under 7 rounds per minute. Other than that, there really aren't any huge innovations yet. Everyone still has half their attention focused on making a working tank at all, let alone trying to improve it and make it more combat effective. Skycon is still using the same Elefant as week 1, in fact. By week 3, more people are joining in on the battles, but everyone is still using mostly steel brick tanks with not a lot of decoration or shaping, and a simple quickfire gun. And Skycon is still using the same Elefant, but this week I lost in quite an unexpected way. I died to autocannons. You see, at the time, autocannons had 0 bullet drop, 0 damage drop off, 0 spread, they were super reliable and compact, and even had good damage compared to big cannons. The lack of spread or drop off in particular allowed them to basically slice a chunk out of your tank like a water jet, which was a guaranteed kill for anyone. In week 4 I improved my loader a little bit, but more importantly I decided to adopt the autocannon strategy and mounted 2 of them to my hull, as was sort of the convention of the time, and this worked incredibly well. After this week, I and most other players had at least 1 autocannon on their tanks. And if you're wondering, yes, Skycon is still using the same fucking Elefant. In week 5's event, you can see here I'm fighting Submarine with my, again, slightly improved autoloader, but both of us know the real damage is going to come from our autocannons, which we are choosing to just sit and spray each other in hopes that we can outtrade the other person. Asian Penguin C has also decided to adopt the autocannon strategy, and he's using flak rounds on his autocannons as opposed to conventional armor piercing. While flak doesn't do nearly as much damage, the explosions can push other tanks around, spinning and shaking them and making them impossible to fight back. We banned flak pretty much immediately after. In week 6, the autocannon spam does not stop. This week's fight is fairly uneventful, mostly just standard tanks bludgeoning each other to the win. There is one new innovation here, which is the oscillating gun, where the autoloader moves with the cannon, sort of like a vertical turret. But this never really catches on for anyone, and even to this day, people don't really use it. To recap, in Season 1, the strategy was pretty simple. Have a lot of armor, like as much as possible, and have as fast a loader as possible. And that's pretty much it. Did you say Season 1? If you didn't know, Tank Tussle is split into 3 seasons so far. Season 2 marks quite a few big changes, most notably, we actually have tracks now. Like real tracks that can go up slopes and they look cool. Plus, there's no more innovation. Wait, what? Yes, beginning in Season 2, we began to run battles with predetermined quote-unquote realistic tanks, and even less realistic scenarios, which is why this new game mode is called realistic. And so people aren't trying to actually compete against one another, we're trying to make balanced tanks. And so innovation pretty much stagnates until just over a month later, with the introduction of free play. This is basically a return to the old style, in which players bring their own tanks. While there's no real tangible improvements being made to the tanks mechanically, they look a hell of a lot better, and more like normal tanks. They're much slimmer, more streamlined, and generally just less janky. The next free play event brings a couple of cool things, like this very small tank, which previously would have been impossible to make. The eagle-eyed of you will notice that the cannon on this tiny tank is a little bit slimmer than usual, and that's because it's a medium cannon from a new mod in Season 2. It's just a bit smaller and packs less of a punch than the quickfire cannons, but it's easier to unload and faster firing. You can think of it as being basically a smaller caliber gun, and the difference between big cannons and medium cannons will only get bigger as the season progresses. The standout of the battle was these two tanks. They were designed by Hailu, I don't know, and Cell 780. And are some of the first to really have a sort of main battle tank balance, as they have pretty good frontal armor, a decently fast cannon autoloader, and even incorporate a bit of computer craft, but more on that later. Honestly quite exceptional tanks, and if I had to give my opinion at the time, I would have said they're pretty much perfect Cell. Around this time, there was a technology known as glitch loading, making its way into Tank Tussle, which was effectively just a method of loading big cannons incredibly quickly, and it had devastating prospects for balance in the future. But at the time, it was little more than an idea to tinker with. Fast forward a couple weeks, and with some small gradual improvements across the board, we come into this free play where Laggy Boy 11 debuts this tank.
Over here, we have, oh, this is Laggy's. Finally a real tank, and it's... Wait, why is it, how is it shooting so fast? Oh, he has 2 cannons! Am I right? Yes, he has 2 medium cannons stacked inside the same block.
Having 2 cannons is nothing new, and the idea of stacking them in the same space had been toyed with in the past, but this was the first instance where it was actually used in combat. With both cannons in the same block, pointing the exact same way, they could both hit exactly the same spot, effectively doubling their penetration, something that side-by-side double barrel tanks could never accomplish. Also in this event was another glitch-loaded tank, this one even faster than mine. Unfortunately for them, my drill tank knocked them out pretty much instantly. And if you're wondering, although pretty interesting, the drill tank concept went pretty much nowhere and fell into irrelevancy almost immediately, so I'm not going to go any further into detail than this. On the other hand, the glitch-loaded tank was known as the Vardyag, I think. And it was created by Lokira and Wipex, or just Wipe. Remember these names for later. Because in the very next free play event, that glitch loader gets even faster, and then the next event, even faster again. But in the scope of normal free play, things are picking up as well. And you can see all tanks just improving across the board in the looks department. While I can't really show it, the internals are getting better as well. Full big cannon autoloaders are becoming almost the norm, and even this player, who is quite new, has a full big cannon gantry loader. On that note, an update added the ability to load cannons using gantries, pistons, and pulleys, but nobody has really utilized them to good effect as of yet. Now we're going to take a trip back over to the showcase channel in the Valkyrian Skies Discord, because Diehard has just posted this beauty of a tank. This is his Merkava Mark IIB, and while a little hard to spot, it has a feature which gives the tanks its dastardly good looks, and this feature will shape the future of all Minecraft tanks. You see, the turret is not aligned with the hull. Normally, with the turret attached to the hull, they have to be aligned, at least vertically, but this turret is not attached to the hull. There's a small plate which the actual turret sits on top of, and this elevates the turret by half a block. There are multiple variations on this concept, such as this, where the turret attaches directly to a quote-unquote bridge, which instead gets elevated and sits inside the hull. This is called the drop-in, because you literally drop in the turret into the hull, and it unlocks a completely new realm for builders to make ever better looking vehicles. Back on the free play side of things, remember the Lokira guy and Wipe, and the Vardyag tank with a super fast glitch loader?
Lives.
My poor.
This is not glitch loading. This is something else entirely, which is called skip loading, because it literally skips most of the steps required to load the cannon. It allows you to load an entire big cannon, 8 powder charges and a shell, in just 2 ticks. My first autoloaded tank had a fire rate of just 7 rounds per minute, if you'll recall. This tank here, with its double barrel, has a maximum theoretical fire rate of 1200 rounds per minute. And unlike glitch loading, which is clunky and difficult to pull off, skip loading skips so much of the loading process that skip loaders are incredibly compact and easy to make. In order to not ruin the meta, and more than partly to retain their advantage, Wipe and Lakura tell nobody about how it works, except me, and to many people, it is still a complete secret. Aside from a few technical things, the latest innovation in Minecraft tanks is something called the Erica Slope, which is basically just sloped armor. That's it, I have no idea why it's called the Erica Slope. Somebody named Erica made a video on it, and now it's called that, despite the fact that they most certainly did not invent slope armor. It works pretty much as you'd expect. By angling the armor, it makes it more difficult to penetrate, that's all. And that brings us to the modern free-play tank climate, which is ruled mostly by heavily armored MBT-style tanks, sporting big autoloaders and controlled by computer craft to save space. A few fanatics still use medium cannons, which have gone through ups and downs of nerfs and buffs, although basically nobody uses quickfire big cannons anymore. That is most of the history of the technological innovation of Minecraft tanks, and that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.